Hey, Dustin in Central South Carolina.
Yes.
How you doing?
Can you guys hear me? Good.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, Dustin.
Hey, I'm not going to ask you to spank me, just so you know.
Okay.
Okay. Well, what I am going to ask you, really, is just for some advice, because I am just now crossing over out of theism. Just officially called myself an atheist a couple days ago. So.
Hey, welcome back to reality.
Thank you. Very similar to you, at least, Matt, at least from what I know about your testimony, your story out of your deconversion really is very similar to mine. I was raised conservative Christian, and I went to school to go into ministry, specifically Protestant ministry, and I believed it very strongly my entire life. I was the annoying theist that was completely convinced and would not back down.
Had you called the show previously?
I've never called the show. I just found your show about 6 months ago.
That's too bad, because it would have been so cool if you'd have called 3 years ago and argued with us and then called now, because that's happened a couple times.
Well, I might as well have, because I've watched so many YouTube playbacks of your show, and so many of them resonate with me. I just keep saying to myself, wow, that was me. Or had I called 3 years ago, I would have used those exact same arguments. So I can see myself in all of the theistic callers that are belligerent and arrogant and convinced and won't take no for an answer.
So I'm wondering if you've reached out to recoveringfromreligion.org.
I've been there, looked at it. I have yet to call, but I think I might. I think it might be healthy for me.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, they've got the Hotline Project now, which can be very beneficial. But also, if there's not an actual group in your area, maybe you can start one.
Yeah.
But anyway, you had an actual question. I didn't mean to derail you.
No, that's okay. That's okay. My question is really about objectivity, and you had a few callers ago was really a great segue. You talked about confirmation bias and seeking things objectively. That's really what I want to talk about, because I hate jumping to conclusions. I don't consider myself an intellectual, meaning that I'm somehow arrogantly placing myself on a higher mental pedestal than others. But I know that I'm a deep thinker, and I always have been. And it irritates me when people jump to conclusions or strongly believe something without justification of that, which is funny because it used to be me.
Yeah, we're in the same boat there too.
Yeah,
we are both frustrated at the way we used to be. And that gets it. So this whole thing about doing your diligence to make sure that the conclusions that you reach are as accurate as possible. There's not like in the past we've probably spoken about the scientific method, and I'm sure on occasions we've talked about hypothesis, testing, peer review, and all this stuff. There are other ways to view the scientific method that don't even require you to do that or to put it in those terms. So this application of critical thinking and evaluation to evidence is to make sure that whatever conclusion you reach it needs to be tentative and subject to revision when new information comes along.
Sure.
As we learned from David Hume, the wise man apportions his belief to the evidence. So your confidence level in your conclusion needs to be proportional to the evidence. But the big thing to try to avoid subjectivity is, hey, John, do you see that too?
Yeah.
Yeah. So not just to rely on yourself. This is where the whole thing of peer review comes from. This is where people go out and try to replicate other people's results. I remember as a kid, you were laying out on the trampoline and it looked like the moon was moving. And so the first thing you do is you start asking people around you, hey, do you see that too? There's a big problem with that, though, when those people's answers are subject to wanting to fit in and be included in all the other people who are seeing the moon move. And so you need to find ways of testing it where somebody who doesn't have a vested interest in whether or not the moon is moving and wants to be a part of your little club then chimes in on whether or not the moon was moving around.
Yeah, that's great advice. Unfortunately, it's extremely difficult in the Bible Belt to find someone who doesn't have a vested interest.
Well, that's the internet's making things like that easier. But the big thing is when you can't find that, and this is going to be the case over and over again because something's going to happen to you and nobody else is going to be around. You're not going to be able to recreate it. You're not going to be able to investigate it thoroughly. And so, in every one of those situations, your conclusion should be, I really don't know what happened. I know I experienced something, but it would be a mistake for me to draw too strong of a conclusion from it. So let me just file that away until I find something similar that I can investigate further and determine how these two might be comparable.
Yeah. Well, on my searches on the internet, this deconversion process has been going on for about 1.5 years now. So it's been very slow. I've gone through great pains and great lengths to try my very best to be objective, but I'm still not quite sure I know how that works. And as I've been looking on the internet, it's so hard to find anyone in the world without a vested interest. It seems like everyone has already reached a conclusion one way or the other, and they're going to be a bulldog and stick to their guns. It's so hard to find anyone who is willing to say, yeah, I was wrong. I know they exist, but I don't know where you find those people, and I want to be that guy.
Yeah, it's. I think one thing to keep in mind is that we're all subject to bias.
Yeah.
You know, even if we really embraced skepticism and we examine everything, we're all subject to bias. So if you can just keep that in mind and always question your assumptions, always question what the data is telling you. Talk to people who disagree with you and find out why they disagree with you, and you know, and listen to their arguments and evaluate it. I think that's the way to minimize bias. It's still going to be there, but at least it's based on something other than just maybe a gut feeling, or you know, somebody had a really charismatic way of presenting their argument and you like them, so you think they're more believable. You know, all of those things kind of can bias the way we look at things, and if you can just kind of scrutinize everything and get in the habit of doing that, I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, I feel like my process has been quite objective. Of course, I would feel that way because I have a vested interest in my own process. But it started because I had a. I'm going to be extremely annoyingly cliche here. I had a recommitment to Jesus about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, which launched a strong desire to know the Bible deeper. And I'd read it all the way through many times and memorized sections, but that launched a strong desire to defend my faith and come up with good reasons to as to why I was a Christian. And
we're like brothers. We're like brothers.
Yeah, I know. I've heard your testimony, and it was like a mirror image of mine. I was like, you know what? This is true. I know it. I feel it. I see it. There's people out there who need to hear this, and I need to come. I need to know that I know that I know, and why, and have good basis for it, and be able to defend it. So that launched a very deep study. Every night I got home from work, all I did was watch Christian apologists speak and read books by various Christian apologists, and it's funny, the opposite happened. The more I read, the less I was convinced, and the more I watched, the more I scratched my head, and the more I wanted to believe, the less I could, and it became undeniable that I was very unsatisfied with these answers.
Yeah, and it's I'm suspecting that it's probably because you wanted to have good reasons for the beliefs that you had and kept coming up short.
Yeah, absolutely. But so here's the basis of my question, or the foundation of my question, really.
Okay.
I know who I used to be, and I know why I used to believe, and I can, looking back and analyzing myself, I understand why I was so convinced. And so I can empathize with those who are so convinced about theism and specifically Christianity. I get it. I don't appreciate those who bash theists, because I understand it. I can empathize in a way that others perhaps cannot, even though I think there's no justification for it. But again, my question, having analyzed myself and knowing that I used to be that, I know that I am prone to confirmation bias, just as everyone is. I know that I'm prone to emotional responses. I know that I'm prone to run after something that feels right and feels good and latch onto that like a bulldog. And I don't want to do that anymore to anything that is short of truth. And while I feel like atheism is a huge step in the right direction, I would hate it if I made the same mistake again.
You're fine.
How do I avoid being that gullible again?
You're fine. You avoid it by doing exactly what you do. Recognize that you have the problem, that you don't want to continue it, and so you are clearly taking the steps to avoid that. I mean, you're going to be just as neurotic as I was, and you're going to be your own worst critic, and you're going to keep going through this over and over and over again, and you'll be second guessing yourself and rethinking it and reevaluating it, probably for a long ass time, maybe forever, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It's what I do every single day of my life.
Yeah. Matt, is there ever anything that is there a compelling argument on the other side, on the theistic side, that ever makes you scratch your head and not make you question whether or not you should be an atheist, but just say, that's a great argument. If there was one thing that gave me pause, it would be fill in the blank.
John, you want to?
I've never come across anything that made me react that way.
There are arguments that I understand why they're compelling to people. When they're addressing people's fears and about grief and loss and dying, and wouldn't it be nice if we could live forever? I understand why those things are appealing. I don't find any of them convincing with respect to whether they're true. And so I think probably the closest is probably arguments that get to first cause and origins in the universe, because this is like a roadblock that we can't investigate beyond. And so the only real answer that we have there is I don't know. And that's particularly frustrating. And so I don't find because what's happening is the theists are claiming, oh yes, we do know, it's God. And I don't find their arguments compelling, but I definitely understand why people run to them. Yeah. But the big difference is becoming comfortable with not becoming comfortable with not knowing, but becoming comfortable with acknowledging that you don't know. Yeah. And then not pretending that you know until you do.
Yep. I appreciate the honesty. That's really the only theistic argument that gives me pause anymore. I've worked through all of them that I can find and think of, and the only one that makes me scratch my head and say, is the origin of the universe.
Yeah, because it would be really neat. It would be so wonderful to take the ultimate question of the universe and tie it up in a nice neat little bow, like, yep, we got it. It's this God thing. Why didn't we think of that before? But it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. You got time for one more quick question?
Sure.
I just want to talk about epistemology.
Oh my gosh. What on earth makes you think that's a quick question?
Okay.
I tell you what, Dustin, you can email, and you can also call back another time. I want to try to get to one more call. We only got like 3 minutes left.
Fair enough. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, reach out to Recovering from Religion and perhaps find a group in your area, because as somebody who's just escaping theism and living life, it's probably good to have people close to you that you can talk to.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks.